The first summer after my divorce was supposed to be quiet. That was the plan. Just me, the house, a few good books, and long days with no expectations. The silence didn't scare me anymore. It had become familiar, even comforting. I'd rearranged the furniture. Gotten used to cooking for one. I knew which floorboards creaked and which days the neighborhood kids would play too loud in the street. There was a strange peace in the loneliness. It didn't ask much of me. I was sitting on the back deck that afternoon, nursing a glass of iced tea that had already gone warm, when I heard the front door slam open. "Dad?" Caleb's voice cut through the still air. He wasn't supposed to be back for another week. "Out back," I called, already setting the glass down and getting to my feet. The sliding door opened behind me, and there he was, all grins and sunburned arms, a duffel bag hanging from his shoulder. I didn't even have time to comment before another figure stepped into view. "Hope it's cool I brought someone," Caleb said. "This is Logan." "Logan." He stepped forward and extended a hand. "Nice to meet you, sir." "Mark," I corrected, gripping his hand. "Just Mark." He smiled, and something in it hit me square in the chest. Friendly, disarming, maybe even curious. He looked about Caleb's age, maybe a year younger. Fit, tan, with hair that looked like it had been naturally kissed by the sun. His t-shirt clung to his frame in a way I tried not to notice. But it was the shorts, those impossibly tight athletic shorts, that nearly undid me. Shorter than they needed to be, hugging his thighs like they were sewn to fit. I looked away. He was just a kid. Well, not a kid, but still. Caleb dropped his bag and wandered into the kitchen, calling out something about snacks. Logan stayed behind, shifting his weight and glancing around the yard. "Nice place," he said. "Thanks," I replied. "It's quiet." He nodded slowly, like he understood something more than I'd said. I watched him walk toward the edge of the deck, looking out over the pool. The way he moved, loose, casual. He didn't seem to carry the awkward energy a lot of Caleb's friends had. He didn't need to prove anything, and somehow that made him more noticeable, more dangerous. I shook it off, told myself it was nothing. Just surprise, that's all. I wasn't used to unexpected guests. Wasn't used to anyone stepping into my space at all anymore. But my eyes kept flicking back to him when I thought he wasn't looking. We all sat outside for a bit, catching up. Caleb did most of the talking. Classes, dorm drama, someone's roommate getting kicked out. I half listened, nodding when appropriate. But I found myself increasingly aware of Logan's presence next to me. The soft scrape of his shoe against the deck. The occasional shift of his leg. The way his laughter came easy. And once, just once, I looked up from my drink and found him already looking at me. He didn't look away. Later, after they'd settled into the guest room and dropped their things upstairs, I stayed downstairs to tidy up the kitchen. My hands moved out of habit, rinsing glasses that weren't even dirty. My mind was somewhere else entirely. This wasn't just about attraction. That would have been easier to dismiss. No, it was the attention. The way he held eye contact. The way he seemed to really listen when I spoke. Like what I said mattered. Like I mattered. It had been a long time since I'd felt that. Too long, and it scared me. I wasn't supposed to notice him. Not like this. Not my son's friend. Not someone so young and vibrant and clearly comfortable in a way I hadn't felt in years. I went to bed early that night, blaming the heat. I lay there, staring at the ceiling fan spinning shadows across the walls, trying to quiet my thoughts. But all I could see was the way Logan smiled when he introduced himself. The way his shorts clung when he walked ahead of me into the house. The slight tilt of his head when he listened. It wasn't just the shorts. It was the way he looked at me, like he knew exactly what he was doing. By the third day, Logan had slipped into our household routine like he'd always been there. He made himself coffee in the mornings, barefoot and humming whatever tune was stuck in his head. He helped with meals without needing to be asked. And he had that rare quality, the kind that made you feel like his presence improved a room without him ever trying. Caleb was thrilled to have him around, of course. The two of them were constantly laughing. usually about things I didn't understand. Internet trends, college inside jokes, that unspoken language you forget once life gets serious. I'd pretend to read on the deck while they bantered in the kitchen, Logan's laughter ringing out like something warm, something young, something I hadn't heard in years. And in those moments, I didn't just feel older. I felt invisible. One afternoon, I watched through the glass as Logan tossed a dish towel at Caleb, who dodged and nearly knocked over a bowl. They doubled, over laughing. Logan leaned against the counter, one hand pressed to his stomach, the other brushing his hair back out of his eyes. He looked alive in a way I couldn't remember feeling, and maybe it was that contrast between their joy and my quiet that made it harder to ignore him. Later that same day, I came back from running errands and found him out by the pool, alone. Stretched out on the lounge chair in those same tight shorts, legs long, arms behind his head, sunglasses tilted just enough that I could see his eyes beneath them. He didn't say anything as I walked past to the patio door, just gave me a lazy, knowing grin. I nodded, offered a half smile, and slipped inside. My pulse didn't settle until I was upstairs. I told myself to stop looking, to stop thinking. But Logan had a way of creeping into the quiet moments. Not with words, but with presence. That night, after Caleb fell asleep with his headphones still in, I found myself restless. I stepped out to grab a glass of water and noticed the soft sound of footsteps from the hallway. Logan had gone for a run. I didn't think much of it until I walked past the guest room on my way back. The door was open, the light was on, and Logan was there, standing in front of the dresser, shirtless, a towel hanging loosely around his neck, breathing deep as he stretched one arm overhead and across his chest, the curve of his back, the tension in his shoulders, the quiet rhythm of his breath. I froze. I should have looked away. I should have kept walking. But I didn't. He turned slightly and saw me. For a heartbeat, we just looked at each other. "Hey," he said, like it was nothing. Like I hadn't just caught him half naked. "Didn't think anyone else was up?" "Yeah," I managed. "Just water." He nodded, unbothered. "Heat's killing me. That run was a mistake." I laughed too quickly. "You've got the metabolism to bounce back," he smiled, pulling on a fresh t-shirt. "I'll take that as a compliment." I stepped back awkwardly as he moved past me and into the hallway. His arm brushed mine, a casual contact, but electric. He didn't say anything else, just disappeared around the corner like it hadn't meant anything. Maybe it hadn't. Maybe it was all in my head, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. The way he moved without shame, the way he looked at me without fear. The way I felt, not just attracted, but aware of my body again, of my breath, of the fact that someone had noticed me for the first time in what felt like years. I went to bed that night and stared at the ceiling, the shadows dancing across the room like flickers of memory. I told myself it was just physical, a passing thing, some confused reaction to being middle-aged and newly single and starved for connection. That Logan was just a symbol, a trigger, a reminder of something I used to feel but hadn't dared revisit. It should have been nothing. But my thoughts kept returning to that moment, again and again. Friday night rolled in heavy and hot, one of those thick, slow evenings where the air barely moves and the silence starts to hum if you sit in it long enough. Caleb was going out to meet some friends across town, a plan that came together last minute, like most of his plans did. "Won't be back late," he said, grabbing his keys. "You guys good?" Logan was already stretched out on the couch, flipping through the TV guide like it was a ritual. "We're fine," I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. "Go have fun." The door closed with a soft thunk, and then it was just the two of us again. I hovered in the kitchen a little longer than necessary, putting away clean dishes and pretending to check something on my phone. Part of me thought Logan would head to bed or retreat to the guest room. But he didn't. Instead, he called out, "Want to watch something?" I hesitated. Not because I didn't want to, but because I did. Eventually, I gave in. He picked a movie. Something familiar. An old classic. I'd seen a dozen times but didn't mind seeing again. The lights stayed low, and the couch felt suddenly smaller than I remembered. We sat at opposite ends at first, a safe distance, the middle cushion acting as a polite buffer. But somewhere between the second act and the end of the popcorn, we'd shifted. Close enough that our arms brushed whenever either of us moved. The movie played, but our attention drifted. I always liked this scene, Logan said during a quiet stretch, where the guy doesn't say anything, he just sits next to her. I nodded. Sometimes silence says more. He looked at me. You're good at that. At silence? At being still. You always seem like you're thinking. I smiled, faintly. I've had a lot of practice. He turned slightly, leaning his head against the back of the couch. Can I ask you something? Sure. Did the divorce feel like failure or freedom? I wasn't expecting that. I paused, letting the question settle before I answered. Both, I said. At first, failure, definitely. Like I'd let time slip through my fingers. Then, after a while, freedom. But not the liberating kind. Just empty space I didn't know what to do with. He was quiet for a moment, then nodded. Yeah, I get that. Not the divorce part, obviously. But the space. I always feel like I'm out of sync with everyone else. Like I'm just watching other people live while I try to figure out how. I looked at him again. There was something about the way he said it. No self-pity, just quiet truth. It was the kind of thing you only admit in safe places, or in front of people who aren't supposed to matter but somehow do. I remember my birthday the year after the divorce, I said. First one alone. No dinner plans, no cake. Just a frozen lasagna and a bottle of wine I barely touched. I told myself it didn't bother me, but it did. Logan shifted, his knee bumping mine gently. You ever talk about that stuff with Caleb? I shook my head. He was busy with school, and I didn't want to be that parent. The one who needs something? No, I said quietly. The one who reminds their kid that parents are people too. The room fell into a comfortable hush. On the screen, the movie moved toward its quiet resolution. Two characters realizing something without saying it aloud. Our arms touched again, but this time neither of us pulled away. I was hyper-aware of every inch between us, of the warmth from his skin, of the steadiness of his breath, of how easily this could be something else, something more. But I didn't move, and neither did he. We just sat there, two people pretending not to notice the gravity between them, watching a movie that no longer mattered. Eventually he stood, stretching in that slow, unhurried way he always did. I'm gonna crash. Thanks for hanging out. Yeah, I said, my voice low. Anytime. He gave me a small nod, that same half-smile he always wore when he didn't want to say too much. And then he disappeared down the hall. I stayed on the couch for a long time after that. The movie ended. The credits rolled. The room went quiet except for the soft whir of the ceiling fan. I stared at the empty cushion where he'd just been. I told myself it was fine, that nothing happened, that lines hadn't been crossed, but deep down, I knew something had shifted. He was my son's friend. This couldn't go anywhere, but I wasn't sure I wanted it to stop. Caleb left on Saturday morning for a weekend camping trip with some friends from high school. He was excited, tossing a duffel bag into the trunk and rattling off a checklist of supplies like a kid heading off to summer camp. You two gonna survive without me? He joked, sunglasses perched crookedly on his nose. We'll try not to burn the place down, Logan replied with a smirk. Good luck, Caleb laughed, and then he was gone, leaving nothing but tire dust in the driveway and silence in his wake. For the first hour, Logan and I kept to our own corners of the house. He lounged out back with his headphones in, flipping through a paperback. I half-heartedly cleaned the kitchen, sorting through unopened mail just to stay busy. It wasn't awkward exactly, just cautious. Like we both knew something was building, and neither of us wanted to be the first to name it. Around 6, I heard pots clanging and the sound of the refrigerator door opening and closing. You okay with pasta? Logan called from the kitchen. I stepped into the doorway and nodded. That'd be great. He was barefoot, sleeves rolled up, chopping garlic with the kind of casual grace that made it look instinctive. The kitchen smelled like basil and something warm and earthy. I leaned against the counter, watching him move. There was a quiet joy in the way he cooked. No performance, no showing off. Just comfort. We ate outside, the sky streaked in orange and lavender. Conversation flowed easily. Stories, memories, silly college stuff. He asked me about my favorite music. I told him I still had some of my old vinyl records tucked away in the cabinet. Seriously? He grinned. Let's play one. After dinner, we returned to the living room. I dusted off the old record player, and he thumbed through the sleeves, like they were artifacts. Oh man, he said, holding up a worn Al Green album. You've got taste. The needle dropped, and the room filled with warm, crackling soul. Logan stepped back, swaying a little. You ever dance? He asked. I gave a short laugh. Not in years. That's not a no. He reached out his hand. I hesitated. Come on, he said gently. We're just two people in a living room. No one's watching. I took his hand. We moved slowly, swaying in place, barely a dance at all. The kind of rhythm that didn't care about steps or technique, just closeness. His body was warm, his hand steady on my back. My heart thudded in a way I hadn't felt in years. The room felt full and empty all at once, like everything that mattered had condensed into this one moment. Logan looked up at me. His voice was low. You seem different tonight. Different how? Lighter, he said. Like you stopped holding your breath. I searched his eyes, unsure how to answer. Then quietly I said, I feel alive. For the first time, in a long time. He didn't react with surprise or pity, just understanding. I know, he said simply. There was a pause, not uncomfortable, just full. And then he leaned in. Not fast, not sudden. He moved like he was giving me time to change my mind. I didn't. His lips met mine softly, the kiss tender and deliberate. It wasn't lustful. It wasn't hungry. It was something else entirely. Quiet. Still. Like a question, asked without needing an answer. When we pulled apart, he didn't step back right away. We just stood there, breathing the same air, eyes locked. No words, no confessions, just presence. Eventually, he let his hand slip from mine. I should get some sleep, he said, barely louder than a whisper. I nodded, unsure if I could speak. He turned and walked toward the hallway, pausing at the edge of the light. Thanks for dancing, he said, with the faintest smile. And then he was gone. I sat back down on the couch, one hand still tingling, heart pounding in the quiet. The record kept spinning, soft music filling the space he'd just left. I didn't know what we were starting, but for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone. The next morning, I woke up with a weight in my chest I couldn't shake. It wasn't regret, not exactly. Just a gnawing confusion. That kiss had been soft, slow, real. But it opened something inside me I wasn't ready for. Not at my age. Not in this house. Not with him. I stayed in my room longer than usual, pretending to be asleep when I heard movement in the kitchen. Logan's footsteps were unmistakable, light, unhurried, like he didn't want to disturb anything. When I finally came downstairs, he was at the table with a cup of coffee, scrolling on his phone. He looked up, smiled faintly. Morning, he said. Hey, I replied, keeping my tone neutral. Sleep okay? Yeah, he said. You? I nodded but didn't sit down. Instead, I grabbed my keys and muttered something about errands. He didn't stop me, didn't press. Just sipped his coffee and let me leave. The air in the house had changed. He wasn't pushing, but I was pulling away. That afternoon, I sat alone, in the car, parked at the grocery store, the engine off. The air conditioning had stopped, and sweat gathered at my collar. I held my phone in my hand, thumb hovering over the photo gallery. At some point last week, Logan had snapped a Polaroid of the three of us in the backyard. Me, him, Caleb, arms slung casually around each other's shoulders, all mid-laugh. I hadn't even noticed the camera. Now, looking at it on my phone, I wanted to delete it. Erase the evidence. Wipe away the proof of how comfortable we'd become, how natural it had felt. I tapped and held the screen. The red delete photo prompt blinked up at me, but I didn't press it. Instead, I saved it to a hidden folder. I told myself it was to clear my gallery. But I knew the truth. I couldn't let it go. Not yet. Back at the house, Logan acted normal. He offered to help make dinner, asked about what I'd bought. I gave short answers and kept my distance. He didn't say anything about the kiss, didn't mention that night, but I could see it in his eyes, the way he kept glancing at me, waiting for a cue that never came. The next day, Caleb returned, oblivious and cheerful, full of stories from his trip. Logan met him at the door with a joke, falling easily back into the friend role. I watched them from the hallway, heart heavy with something I couldn't name. They looked young, carefree, like nothing had changed, but something had. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat in the dark at the edge of my bed, the Polaroid in my hand. There was a knock on my door. Soft, hesitant. "Yeah?" I said, my voice low. Logan stepped in, wearing a t-shirt and sweatpants, hair tousled like he'd just rolled out of sleep. "I won't stay long," he said. "Just needed to say something." I nodded, though I wasn't sure I wanted to hear it. He stood by the door, not coming any closer. "I know you're trying to pull back. I get it. I really do." I didn't respond. "I'm not here to complicate your life," he continued. "And I'm not trying to make this harder than it needs to be." He took a breath. "But I meant it. That night. I meant the kiss. I meant everything I said." He looked at me, his eyes soft but steady. "You don't owe me anything. I'm not asking for anything." A pause. "I just didn't want you to think I didn't feel it too." My throat tightened. I looked away. I wanted to tell him I felt it, that I was just scared, that I hadn't let anyone in for so long, I forgot how, that he saw something in me I didn't know was still there. But the words didn't come. Logan stepped back. "Good night, Mark." He turned, hand on the doorknob. I could have stopped him. I didn't. But I didn't close the door either. I didn't ask him to stay. But I didn't want him to leave either. Caleb left the following Tuesday. Just like that, the summer was coming to an end. He packed quickly, the way young people do when they're more excited about where they're going than where they've been. His room was stripped bare by noon, and by mid-afternoon he was honking the horn from the driveway, already texting friends as Logan helped him load the last bag into the trunk. "Thanks for the couch, man," he called to Logan with a grin. Logan smiled. "Anytime." Caleb turned to me, gave a quick hug. "I'll call you next week. Be good," I said, watching him go. And then it was quiet again. But not the same kind of quiet I had known before. Logan stayed behind for a few more days. Said his lease didn't start until the weekend, and his classes wouldn't kick off for another week. I didn't ask questions. I didn't have the right. We moved through the house like people who had shared something unspoken and were now pretending it hadn't happened. Except we weren't pretending. Not really. We just weren't naming it. Each day felt like a quiet drift toward goodbye. Not awkward, not dramatic. Just slow. Gentle. Like the last few bars of a song you didn't want to end. We cooked together, watched TV in short bursts. He sat by the pool in the afternoons, always with a book open but rarely turning the page. I found myself watching him more than I meant to. Not for the reasons I had in the beginning. It wasn't about attraction now. It was about the stillness, the way he carried himself. The feeling that something had shifted inside me, and he was the only person who'd noticed. On Thursday afternoon, I was outside repairing one of the old wooden deck chairs. The backrest had cracked sometime during the winter, and I'd never gotten around to fixing it. Without saying a word, Logan joined me. He handed me the screwdriver like he knew exactly what I needed. He held the slats in place while I adjusted the screws. At one point, I looked up, and he was smiling, not at me, but at the work, like the simplicity of the task grounded him. That moment stuck with me more than the kiss ever had. It wasn't loud, it wasn't tense, it was just two people fixing something together. Later that evening, he cooked dinner for us. A simple pasta dish, nothing fancy. We didn't talk much over the meal. We didn't need to. Afterward, we sat outside, the air, thick with late summer heat, the sun dragging its feet below the horizon. He handed me a small white envelope. "What's this?" I asked. "Open it." Inside was a Polaroid. The three of us, me, Caleb, Logan, standing in the backyard, arms slung over shoulders, all mid-laugh. Caleb's eyes were closed from laughing too hard. Mine were crinkled with a genuine smile. Logan was looking at the camera, a calm grin on his face. "I took it the first week," he said. "Meant to give it to you earlier, but it didn't feel right until now." I stared at the photo for a long time. There was something about it that felt timeless. Like if I blinked, it would disappear. "You made this place feel like home," he added quietly. I swallowed hard. "You brought something into it I didn't know was missing." He smiled. Not the flirty kind from before. Something softer. Quieter. We didn't talk about the kiss. Not directly. Not the feelings, or the nights of unspoken tension. We didn't talk about what it was or what it wasn't. Instead, we just sat there. At some point, he stood, brushed the back of his pants, and stepped closer. He didn't ask for a hug. He just offered one, and I took it. Our arms wrapped around each other like it had always been that way. No heat, no tension, just warmth. Steady and sincere. When we pulled back, there was nothing else to say. He nodded once and walked back inside. I stayed outside as night fell, the sky dimming into deep blues and charcoal grays. The pool reflected the porch light in quiet ripples. I sat in the same chair where I'd first seen Logan walk into my life, wearing those shorts, casting that look, stirring something in me I thought was long gone. I pulled the Polaroid from my pocket and looked at it again. It didn't matter what it had been. Whether it was attraction or timing or the ache of being alone for too long. It had been something real. It had reminded me I was still here, still capable of being seen, of being known. It wasn't about age, it wasn't even about desire. It was about being seen, and I'll never forget how he saw me.